these monuments stand, it is quite possible that they were the organizing power which brought these monuments together into a pattern, and that they had resolved to glorify the universe. And as various commandments or commissions came to them to build, they introduced the necessary symbolism, perhaps without even the knowledge of those who commissioned the buildings. It is very possible that the entire procedure was due to this group of initiate builders. The next monument is said to have been dedicated to the deity Saturn, and this was the Pharos of Alexandria, the great lighthouse that stood at the entrance to the harbor of the city of Alexandria in North Africa. The Pharos was a wonderful structure over 600 feet in height and composed entirely of white marble. It stood for quite a long time, and the ruin of it was visible as late as the 14th century of the Christian era. It had at the top an arrangement for the building of great signal fires, in order that ships at sea a long way off could see the fire burning on the top of this column and be led to safety. Therefore, the Pharos was actually a lighthouse, and it was one of the earliest examples of this type of construction. It is remembered also that during the Roman wars in Egypt, this Pharos was at one time the refuge of Julius Caesar. It was a wonderful structure, and because it was the tallest and rose in the most impressive spire, the ancients declared that it was associated with the deity Saturn. Another tremendous and magnificent architectural endeavor was the creation of the great Babylonian gardens. These are supposed to have been ordered and designed in connection with the symbolism of Semiramis, Queen of Babylon. Actually, we know now that this queen was an embodiment or personification, at least in symbolism, of the concept of the planet Venus. It was a great symbol of beauty and of artistry and of the glory of creative idealism. Semiramis has been very difficult to trace historically as a queen. She becomes practically a mythological person, and as a mythological person was an extension of the power of Venus. These gardens consisted of a great pyramidal structure rising in levels or stages, each of the levels magnificently planted with all kinds of rare and glorious flowers and trees and things of that nature. And on the very top level of the pyramid was an enormous reservoir, which was used to collect the water necessary to water the entire garden. It was a beautiful example of man's earliest concept of horticultural and botanical accumulation. It was also involved in science and was important on a scientific level because it brought knowledge of the growth of plants and trees and shrubs from all parts of the world that were gathered there, and also used to increase the medicinal knowledge that men had of the use of plants and things of that nature. The hanging gardens, so-called, of Babylonia are therefore considered among the great wonders of the world. Now we should pause a moment in connection with and go back to the Pharos of Alexandria, the great lighthouse, because this is an alternative to one other monument that is said to have been of equal value or significance from the standpoint of planetary rulership. It being held by some writers that instead of the great lighthouse of Alexandria, this concept of the deity Saturn rightfully belongs to Solomon's temple. So this has been considered as an alternative, the great temple complex on Mount Moriah in Jerusalem. The Temple of Solomon was not a great structure in itself, but the enormous platforms upon which it stood, the tremendous architectural skill of the builders in arranging the buildings surrounding the temple, and setting forth the entire complex in the pattern of the ancient Jewish religion, these endeavors and achievements caused the building to be regarded as an alternative, and in some lists it takes the place of the Pharos of Alexandria. Now, the next structure that comes naturally to us is the magnificent tomb of King Mausolus. This is so-called the mausoleum at Halicarnassus. This word, mausoleum, from the king Mausolus, is now the root of our common term, mausoleum, as a name for a place for the reposing of the remains of honored dead. This great king was a magnificent warrior. He did a great deal to unite and bind together his peoples. He was an astute leader, and his tomb is said to be a monument to the planet Mars, as being the monument to the warrior in the group we have mentioned. This structure was a large cubical structure with extensions and towers, and surmounting the roof of it was also a pyramid, and on the top of this pyramid a magnificent golden statue of King Mausolus. This structure has disappeared. We have no actual trustworthy representations of it, but from the ancient report a reasonable reconstruction is possible. The next and last of these wonders, then, is that which relates to the planet Mercury. And all Egypt and other nations agree that this wonder belongs primarily by right to the great complex of pyramids at Giza, particularly the Great Pyramid, and that this was a monument to the God of wisdom, to the God of knowledge and the God of letters, that it actually represented the entire epitome of ancient learning, for into it were built the principles of the known arts and sciences of the day. It was therefore sanctified to the messenger of the gods, to the mysterious winged deity Hermes. If we consider this group, then, we observe that we have a pattern, a very well-defined, organized group of symbols, that they form a kind of cluster. And while, of course, in ancient times there was much travel necessary between them, if we look at them from today, they are only in a comparatively small region, brought together with an amazing amount of ingenuity. Now, there were other great buildings of the old world, but they have never seriously competed with these. These constitute a set apart, and that they should have been so selected in the presence of such other possibilities as the Roman Forum, or the Circus Maximus, or the Colosseum, or the Acropolis at Athens, or other tremendous achievements, that these should not be included, but only the seven wonders, and bound to the very important number 7, seems to indicate that there was an intent and a purpose behind this selection. Now, there's one point in this that I think we should also bear in mind, namely that all of these wonders represent actually architectural or art achievements. They really do not give to us a full understanding in themselves of the achievements of antiquity. They do tell us beyond all doubt and question that the peoples producing these monuments were highly advanced in many arts and sciences. But when we look back upon antiquity, we are rather too prone to look back upon monuments, rather than to look back upon the more living memorials that descend to us through the achievements of people. Therefore, paralleling these 7 with equivalence derived from the intellectual and moral life of man, we come to another great group of contributions by which antiquity is remembered. monuments that stand perhaps even more powerfully than the symbolic shrines that we have described. So I made a list here of some of the other contributions in relationship to the seven wonders. So we can take this particular group. We can parallel the seven wonders with seven forms of learning to which we are peculiarly indebted to antiquity. As the most obvious and direct reference to the planet and to the luminaries is found in the Colossus of Rhodes, which was the sun god. We can also find that we can parallel this statue with a great science that came down from the past, namely the science of astronomy. The Colossus of Rhodes gives us an archetypal concept of astronomy. By its structure and by its integration, the temple of Diana of Ephesus, the lunar temple, parallels music. The great Phidian figure of Zeus, the Zeus of Olympus, under the planet Jupiter, gives us the archetypal structure of law as jurisprudence or legislation. The Pharos of Alexandria, the great lighthouse of Saturn, the tallest and the most illuminating of all the monuments, mathematics, the mother of sciences, the beginning of organized knowledge. Outstanding in the system also, the temple or memorial of King Mausolus, the mausoleum of Halicarnassus, under the rulership of Mars, ties to the principle of architecture and the hammering and cutting and chiseling of stone. The marvelous structure of the Hanging Gardens of Babylonia bind with the concept of art, and the pyramid ruled over by Hermes with his caduceus reminds us also of another great art of the ancient medicine. So out of antiquity we have secured not only these ruined physical monuments, but we have also received psychological monuments, monuments upon which we have built as foundations, but we are indebted to and dependent upon the skill of ancient man for the foundations of all sciences and arts known today. So the seven great arts and sciences of the ancients, astronomy, music, law, mathematics, architecture, art, and medicine, constitute another heritage out of the past, a heritage of enduring human achievement. Now we also know that the ancients gave us not only this concept of sciences and arts, but a directive in connection with the use of them. We realize that they represented these arts as having been bestowed by deities for the purpose of assisting humanity to achieve its birthright, and that in ancient times all sciences and arts were dedicated to the service of deity, and consequently the artisan was also a priest, one in whose life and nature a great gratitude, a wonderful thankfulness, and a wonderful humility is shared with knowledge in dominating his concepts. Therefore astronomy was more than the mere study of the visible heavens. It was the study of the anatomy and physiology of God, the discovery of the tremendous universal mystery whose body nature is and God the soul. Therefore, with reverence, the sciences were advanced. Music was the art which gave man the concept of universal harmony. It had to do with order and integration. It had to do with vibration, whether the ancient was fully aware of the term or not. He worshipped through music. He grew through music. He felt the tremendous importance of this harmonic structure of sound, and he dedicated it to the service of his God and to the various rituals and rites and ceremonies of religion. Gradually we have come to secularize most of these